It was a moment, Lawrence, of transcendent grace. Bill Richards sat there and recounted that whole day that his family had, that started as a great family tradition going up to the marathon and ended in unspeakable violence.
Back now on America's Forum, that was Boston Globe columnist Kevin Cullen on MSNBC recounting the testimony of Bill Richard in the Boston bomber trial. Bill's 6-year-old daughter Jane lost a leg during the blast. Sadly, his 8-year-old son Martin lost his life. Other victims and members of victims' families are taking the stand against Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, all detailing the horrible events of that spring morning back in 2013. For an update on what's happening in the courtroom, we're pleased to welcome back Boston criminal defense attorney Geoffrey Nathan, and remaining with us, our good friend from Newsmax LA, Larry Elder. Geoffrey, more than 24 witnesses with testimony over the first 2 days. Hearing these stories, what is the defense team going to do?
Well, the defense team, right in its opening argument, for whatever reason, conceded guilt in this case, and consequently the defense now has to just carve out some exception during the course of the trial as to why Tsarnaev should not be executed. But frankly, I'm not so certain that that was the best course of action for the defense lawyers to take. I'm not so sure that it's the best thing to do, because I think they should have muddied the waters a little bit before they did that. I mean, Tsarnaev could have done that himself, for crying out loud. So I think Tsarnaev has got to give some thought as to whether or not he wants to fire his lawyers and ask that the judge appoint someone who's willing, to go after the government a little bit harder than just conceding the entire case. That's what I think.
Geoffrey, why didn't the judge grant a change of venue, and do you think it would have done any good in the outcome of the trial?
I think the judge should have thrown it out to the western part of the state to avoid any possibility of the defense having a solid grounds to appeal. Here's what happened. They wound up sitting an all-white jury in an area that is not all white, and so you've handed the defense an opportunity to give the appeals court something to really sit on and say, something, this jury selection just wasn't done right. That's why the judge should have let go of the case.
And Geoffrey, sounds to me like you're saying this defense team has blown it. You really believe Tsarnaev should fire his lawyers and ask the court to give him new ones?
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, there was enough to go on in the opening statement, which could have led the jurors to say, something, maybe Tsarnaev is not guilty at all. I know there's some evidence against him. Maybe it's right out of his own hand and out of his own mouth. But you still have to, when a guy's up on the needle, for crying out loud, you got to do something other than just say he did it. I mean, that's not a zealous defense. That's not an adequate defense. It's what we call a laydown. That's what you call a government court-appointed lawyer representing the defendant and just handing the government a guilty. So, it wasn't done right. No.
So, Geoffrey, if you were defending him, what would be your line of defense? What's the strongest argument?
I would have, no matter what, have said, look, the evidence may seem as though he's guilty, but there's facts that we want you to keep an open mind on. And furthermore, we're going to have the defendant testify that he didn't do this, and because you've got no choice but to put your guy on the stand in this circumstance and have him testify as to what he really was doing or wasn't doing. But to just say right in the opening argument that he's guilty, I mean, why don't we just go right to the sentencing phase, for crying out loud? That's what I would have done.
And mindful of the sentencing phase, with 30 seconds remaining, are they just hoping basically to dodge the death penalty, even though the government says this is a death penalty case?
Either dodge it or tie it up in the appeals courts for the rest of Tsarnaev's natural life, which is, generally speaking, that happens a lot in the federal death penalty cases. But I'm not so certain that serves anyone's interests, as a matter of fact.
Geoffrey G. Nathan, noted defense attorney from Boston, Massachusetts. Sir, we thank you for Skyping in, where it's almost tropical there today, 20 degrees. We appreciate it, Geoffrey. And from sunny Los Angeles, Newsmax LA, Larry Elder, thanks for being with us the entire hour. Hour 2 of America's Forum coming right up after this.